Hi, everyone. Welcome to another exciting webinar. My name is Sarah Fung, and I'm a registered nurse. I'm the co-host of the Gritty Nurse podcast, CEO of the RN Resume, and upcoming author of The Wisdom of Nurses. And today we're going to be talking about legal nurse consulting. So I'm super excited to have this webinar because I know this is a topic we all want to hear about. And I can see here we have Chris. So Chris just logged on. I'm super excited. And I know she's actually calling us all the way from South America. So we're going to hopefully get her video, but if not, we've got her here finally. Chris, are you here with us?
I am. Can you hear me, Sarah?
Yes. Thank you for joining all the way from South America. You're officially the farthest guest I've ever had. Super excited to have you. I'm going to start by letting Tina introduce herself, and then we'll go to you, Chris.
Okay, sure.
Okay. Hi, I'm Tina Baxter. I'm a nurse practitioner, legal nurse consultant from Indiana, and have been in healthcare for over 25 years. My specialty is geriatrics, mental health, and addictions nursing.
Awesome. And Chris, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I am also from Indiana a long time ago, Tina, just so you know, Columbia City, Indiana. But met and married a Canadian boy and have lived here in Canada since I was in my early teens. I started working as a labor and delivery nurse a long time ago, and then started doing legal nurse consulting work about 20 years ago. And since that time, there's my video. I'm excited. Sorry, we just literally arrived in Panama 10 minutes ago, and we're just getting things set up as quickly as we can. And have built a company of medical legal education and medical legal consulting. My current business is mostly connecting doctors, nurses, midwives, paramedics, everybody else with lawyers and attorneys who need medical expert witnesses. That's my story.
Amazing. So anybody that's listening live, feel free to put comments into the chat. We really want to hear what you think, if you have any questions, because this is the time to ask. I know the topic of legal nurse consulting comes up all the time that I see on social media and in conversations. So this is your chance to ask questions. And I'm sure everyone listening is wondering about your journey into legal nurse consulting. Tina, could you share your journey into how you got into this role?
By accident. Actually, what happened is I got a letter in the mail. It came to my practice, actually, from an attorney's office. And of course, anytime you get a letter at your practice from an attorney's office, your heart stops, right? But it was an attorney that was asking me to sit on a medical review panel of a nursing home case. It's a big nursing home litigation case. And in the state of Indiana, if you are going for to sue, you have to go before the Board of Insurance first. And so they convene a panel of experts, and I got asked to sit on that panel. And so I agreed to do it. I thought, oh, this might be interesting. So I said, I'll give it a go. And so I agreed. And then he says, oh, and by the way, I'll need your fee schedule. Well, I didn't have one. So that was a challenge for me, but I enjoyed it ever since. Being a panel of experts, and I got asked to sit on that panel, and so I agreed to do it. I thought, oh, this might be interesting. So I said,
sorry, this is my phone.
I agreed, and then he says, oh, and by the way, I'll need your fee.
Sorry about that. Okay, go ahead, Tina.
So that's how I got started. It's sitting on the medical review panel, and because I'm in that area, I am supposed to be neutral, right? I'm not for the plaintiff. I'm not for the defense in that case. So I reviewed the case, and the defense attorney, who was very impressed that I remained calm during my deposition. She has been one of my biggest clients ever since.
Amazing. I love these stories. You kind of just went with it, and it worked out well for you.
Yeah, it was I got my first case. Got boxes. This is back when they would send you paper records. So I got boxes and boxes of records to go through. And while that was happening, I ended up being a fact witness in another case. And I found that I really enjoyed it. Digging through the medical records actually is fun to me.
And how about you, Chris? How did you get started?
I'm kind of like Tina. It was somewhat accidental. I've been working as a labor and delivery nurse for about 25 years, and I was approached by a lawyer who asked if I would provide expert opinion on a case. And I honestly, at the time, I didn't even know nurses did this kind of thing. I didn't know it was a job that nurses had. So I like Tina. I just got right into the medical records. I loved the investigative process. And I gave my expert opinion and wrote an expert report, which was, I had no idea how to do that, and almost went to court. Like the case literally settled on the courthouse steps. It was a labor and delivery case where there'd been a bad outcome. And I made the decision that day that I loved the work, but I needed to know how to do it really well, because somewhere in that process, I got such an understanding of the gravity of what my expert opinion could affect patients, doctors, nurses, hospitals, healthcare, social systems, the family, everybody involved in the lawsuit. So I stopped everything I was doing for about a year, and I looked for education on legal nurse consulting, and in Canada there was none. So I went all the way. I went to the AALNC, which is the American Association of Legal Nurse Consulting, and I studied with them for almost 2 years. Studied their textbook. I couldn't write the exam because I was Canadian. I couldn't make some of the things work. But I put myself back out there. I kind of hung my shingle up again, and I got very busy very quickly because legal nurse consulting was kind of a brand new concept in Canada. This was in 2001, so it was almost 23 years ago. I put myself out there, and I got very, very busy as an expert witness on obstetrical malpractice lawsuits. Loved the work, busy, and still trying to hang on to a clinical position at the same time. And then nurses started asking me for how to do what I was doing, to learn how to be legal nurse consultants. And lawyers started asking me for different types of experts. Because one thing important to know about legal nurse consulting is you really only consult within your own area of expertise. I would never, ever try to do an ICU case or some things like that where I just literally don't have any expertise. So I did obstetrical cases. So out of that, again, completely accidentally, I went to the AALNC, and with their blessing, God bless them, they gave me all of their educational material, and I adapted it to Canadian law and marketing and business and healthcare systems, because as you know, we're quite different. And I built a course called Introduction to Legal Nurse Consulting, and I trained a couple hundred nurses. And then I put all those nurses all wouldn't work. So I put all that out to lawyers. And that's how I sort of built my consulting business. And then lawyers started asking for doctors over time. And then they needed paramedics and midwives and diagnostic imaging, whatever the case requires. And so I just said, probably much like Tina, I love the work, and I just kept saying yes to everything. And now I'm 20 years in. We probably have, like my company's Connect Experts. I'm not doing any expert witness work anymore because I've been away from the bedside since the end of 2009. My own clinical practice has been shut down, but I still do a ton of legal nurse consulting and work running the business. We probably have 300 experts working on any given day across the country and in some other countries as well. And it's medical malpractice lawsuits, it's class action lawsuits, it's consulting to law offices, it's sitting on panels, it's correctional facility cases, sometimes it's criminal cases, sometimes it's car crash accident cases with insurance companies. So that was kind of it. It was kind of accidental, just like Tina, and I've had a blast growing it.
Amazing. This is all new to me. I just know what I know from the movies and TV, which is probably not accurate because I feel like a lot of things in the media are not accurate. What, if any, educational preparation did you need? Tina, I'll start with you.
Well, because I got that case fairly quickly, I knew I needed to do something immediate. And the quickest and easiest way for me to do was to take an online course through the university. And so that's what I did. It was a 6-week course. I got signed up right away and got started because I wanted to at least understand the basics of what I was supposed to do. And that was very helpful. It was taught by an attorney. And he gave us an assignment to go to the courthouse and pull these records. And so you learned how to do the research, which was very instrumental and helpful for me. So I would say find your path that works for you. Some people will go through the formal training with AALNC or other organizations out there, but you need to find your path that works for you, because they're hiring you for your nursing knowledge, not for your legal knowledge. And I think that a lot of new legal nurse consultants don't realize that. They think they have to know all the legal stuff, and you really don't. What you need is the basics to understand what to do, and a little bit on the business side. Don't forget that, because that's important too. You need to know how to bill. You need to know how to invoice and those types of things. And so there's a lot of things in being a business owner that fortunately I was a previous business owner, so I knew how to start a business and do all that, but a lot of nurses don't know how to do that startup process. And so I think that's important as well too.
How about you, Chris? Anything to add to that?
A couple of things, and one would be that you really need to have a good, I work quite differently than Tina, but to be an expert witness in a medical malpractice lawsuit where you might go to court as an expert, whenever I retain nurses or hire them or train them, we request that they have 6 to 8 years solid experience in some clinical area, like 6 steady years in ICU or ER. Because when you're putting yourself out there as an expert and you're going to be on the stand to get cross-examination, you really need to know your stuff. Like you really do. You don't ever want to get on the stand or be part of a giving expert opinion on a lawsuit and get disqualified as an expert. And that's a career-ending move if there ever was one. So it's really great to have a base knowledge. And then, as Tina said, this is going to be independent consulting work. So you need to know how to do basic things like write a medical expert report and write an invoice and keep track of everything. You might have taxes you have to file. There's all kinds of things that you have to do as an independent business owner. And as for education, in Canada, you don't have to have any education. And I didn't, to be honest, when I did my first case, as I said, I just kind of did it cold. But I would highly recommend a course, something, so you really understand your role within the whole court system. And you're not there, as Tina said, you're not there to help anybody win a case. You're there to give an unbiased expert opinion on the standards of care and how things went on, and the nursing practice. And you need some really basic things too. Like Tina and I both can connect on the fact that we are crazy about just ripping a file apart and getting down to the details. It's important to be very detailed. It's important to be very self-motivated. No one is going to tell you to get your work done. You have to be very, very self-motivated. You have to be very professional. You have to be very well written. You have to be well spoken. And you also have to have very good basic computer skills. I don't know if it's true for you, Tina, but a lot of the work that I do is on the computer,
Yes.
emails back and forth, filing all sorts of different forms that I've never even seen in my life, and writing expert reports. So to understand the basic bones of what goes in an expert report, how to write a great resume, which is your shtick, Sarah, your expertise. I've often thought about calling you for mine. And it's great work. And I think a lot of the best legal nurse consultants also hang on to a clinical practice and do things part-time. And I did for years. I did for 10 years until I was just too busy with my own business that I couldn't do both things. So it's great to have a part-time clinical practice and stay really up to date on the standards of care and really understand how things operate in a hospital or a nursing home, correctional facility, a lab, whatever it is that your expertise is in. So I, like Tina, would recommend a course for sure, just because I think this is brand new. Many nurses who go into this have never done anything like this before. And but I mean, it's a great job. And here I'm sitting in Panama doing my work and running my business, and I'm grateful every single day that I fell in this direction.
Amazing, amazing. I think there's a lot of commonalities we all have. And there's a question actually from the audience, and they read my mind because I was also wondering if there are any resources or tips on how to establish an hourly rate as a nurse expert witness, especially for interprovincial cases. So, Chris, I'm going to ask you first just because it sounds like this person is in Canada.
Sure. A lot of people start at around 100 to 125 up to 150 an hour. And like personally, I've never changed my rate for an interprovincial case. There's different taxation rates in different provinces in Canada. As we all know, there's 13% HST and Alberta has 5% GST. But that's not something you really have to worry about until you're making a certain amount of revenue in your company or in your sole practice. But I think it's not uncommon to charge between 1 and 150. Now, if you're a nurse practitioner or you've got a very advanced practice degree of some sort, it can be much higher than that, 175 to 250 even. That's what I'm seeing anyway. And we don't have, I know in the US, and Tina can speak to this, there's a lot of legal nurse consultants who work in law offices. In fact, I think most legal nurse consultants work in law offices. And there's a little tiny handful of those in Canada. Like I literally know of 3 of them, and they all work. One works for a plaintiff's firm, and 2 work for defense firms. And I think they charge between 45 and 50 an hour, in that range, 45 and 60 an hour maybe. But those of us that are doing independent consulting are in the 1 to 150 range, kind of as a general starting point.
Well, I think what we have to make sure we differentiate very well is that there's an expert witness rate, and then there's the behind the scenes LNC work rate. And so those are 2 different things. And so you can be a behind the scenes LNC and not be clinically active, but you have to be clinically active in your area to be an expert witness, because you're going to opine on the standard of care based on that period of time. And so it really varies between state to state, even on some of those laws about who can be qualified as an expert witness. And so you need to know your individual laws in your state. However, as far as your pricing, she's right. Usually behind the scenes, you're looking $40, $50, $75 an hour or something like that. However, if you're being an expert witness, it's anywhere between 100 to 200, 250, depending on your length of time doing it, your expertise. And if you do have an advanced degree, because I'm a nurse practitioner, my charges are a little bit higher. But when I started out, I just Googled LNCs in Indiana, what did they make? And then I priced myself like a little bit under that, because I knew I was learning and I didn't want an attorney to have to pay for the learning curve. And when I talk about loving to dig into the medical records, I make sure that I asked the attorney, what's their budget, so that I can stay within their budget. If they want, they have a certain budget, I let them know, hey, we're reaching that point of your retainer is up or your budget's up, or, do you want me to proceed? And I let them know what that would be. So that communication is very important. And some of those things that you learn when you take courses and things like that.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think that as nurses, especially nurses at the bedside, they tend to think of their value in what they currently make at the bedside per hour. But obviously, when you're an independent practitioner, you have to cover your overhead. You don't have insurance, you don't have paid vacation. Like all of these things need to be factored into your hourly rate. So that's really good advice. And I'm really glad that you guys have different perspectives. There is another question from Casey. She wants to know, is there space in LNC for nurses who have not specialized in acute care? For example, is there any demand for expert nursing opinion regarding nurses more versed in chronic disease, case management, public health, and community health? Tina, any thoughts?
Yes. So I had a case that was actually a home health aid case. And because I train home health aides and CNAs, and that's part of my practice. And so it was a case of a fall, and I can't go into too much because it's still an active case, but it was a fall case in a home care setting. And so definitely as nurses in home care, community health, you may be actually called in as a public health nurse to talk about infectious disease. and protocols in the local community. So there's definitely room for you in the outpatient setting. So you don't have to be acute bedside. As they say, it depends on what they're asking you for.
Okay. And Chris, any thoughts?
I would say I would agree with that as well. I mean, the bulk of the cases are in acute care. There's ER and med surge and sometimes orthopedic surgery. Labor and delivery, of course, are the big money cases for a lot of different reasons. But, you know, for the last 20 years, I've looked at hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cases, and there has literally been one or more for every single type of nursing and clinical specialty area you can imagine. Even a Tim Hortons Camp Health nurse was sued for one reason, and a nurse who worked at a university, and a foot care nurse, and a dialysis nurse. There's all kinds of, you know, wherever there's a lawsuit, they're going to need that particular type of nursing. But one thing I'd like to bring up is there's opportunities. Once you have this education and this mindset and this thinking and expertise, there's always, what Tina just said, getting called in for inquiries and looking to do behind the scenes work and to look at an investigation. That isn't, it's legal nurse consulting work, but it isn't, and I apologize that I didn't really clarify that, Tina, but all I do is expert witnesses who have the potential to eventually go to trial, because there's so little of the other type of support, behind the scenes support here in Canada as of yet. Don't think it's not because I haven't pushed it, because I have. I've tried to get LNC in the law office, and LNC is doing all kinds of things. But there's opportunity once you've got the mindset and the knowledge and the basic understanding of how to tear apart an incident and present it in a way that makes it really clear what the standards were, what should have happened here, and the capacity to make recommendations for change. There are a lot of public and business and healthcare opportunities for you to use that expertise that isn't necessarily, you know, involves going to court.
Okay, that's great. And for both of you, is there such a thing as a typical day, or could you describe what someone might expect getting into this line of work? Chris, I'll just start with you.
Well, you know, I'm living a very atypical life right now, but I mean, I think that's fair of everybody to see this too as a possibility down the road. I put 20 years of hard work into it. You know, up every day, marketing, invoicing, doing my own expert witness work, looking at cases, writing reports, finding experts. So a very typical scenario for me is I will literally get an email from a lawyer who said, listen, I have a client, let's say a plaintiff's lawyer, I have a client who went into the ER last week with a headache, and he was sent home with some Tylenol, but 2 days later had a serious stroke. I need an ER nurse and an ER doctor and a neurologist to give opinions on the standards of care and causation in this case. So that's a very common thing that happens in my day 2 or 3 times a day. But as an expert, when I was busy as an expert witness, I was doing a lot of writing, expert report writing, and medical record review takes a ton of time. 2 or 3 times a year, I would go to trial and be an expert witness on the stand. And I was doing a lot of speaking. My heart is still very much with healthcare, so I do a lot of talking to lawyers, but I do every bit as much talking as I can to nurses. So I have done in the past, pre-COVID, a ton of traveling and speaking at nursing conferences and teaching the courses that I teach on legal nurse consulting and medical legal issues in nursing. My current day, however, is I woke up and I got on a plane and I flew from Colombia to Panama, and that's kind of a typical day right now. And I'm able to still run my business from here because I have some great staff, and thank you to the magic of technology. Things are over email and phone, and I've got a scanner and a couple of laptops, and I just get the job done. So that's not a great answer, probably, Sarah. I don't have a typical day, and I have great staff whose days would be much more typical than mine are right now.
But, no, that's great. That's great. I think a lot of us aspire to your lifestyle at some point. So, Tina, do you have a typical day, or does that look any different for you?
Well, my days are not as typical either, because I still practice full-time clinically. So I still see patients 40 hours a week. And then I also, on my days off or weekends, I'm sitting here, on my laptop most of the time because the records now come electronically, and pouring through the records. And so I may work 2 or 3 hours reading depositions, or because, as an expert, I do a lot of expert witness work. And so I get the depositions after they've been sent in, and the medical review panel reports. I'm reporting through that in medical records. And my practice is a little bit different because I don't write a lot of reports, because the attorney that I work with for defense a lot of times doesn't like me to write things down because what a lot of people don't know is that if you write it down, it's discoverable. So there's some things that I don't write down, like the conversations that we have. Some of them are confidential and private. So there's little tips and things that you'll know. But what I will say is that you'll have to spend your time in, when you're going to market, when you're going to call attorneys and ask them about cases. When are you going to sit down and write those reports? Those are things that you need to do. And I've become very effective in time blocking so that I can do that and keep up with all the things that I do.
Amazing. So I've been wondering in the back of my mind, in terms of your own insurance, like, is there extra insurance you need, or do you have to let your board of nursing or your college of nursing know that you're doing legal nurse consulting or that type of thing? Tina, do you want to share any insight on that?
Yeah, I mean, there is insurance out there for legal nurse consultants, and you may want to consider doing that, malpractice insurance. However, because you're not establishing a patient relationship, you're not really needing malpractice in that way. So there are some plans that are out there that if you wanted to do that, you can. And then no, you don't need to let your board of nursing know that you're doing this type of work because you're functioning independent. And again, you don't work for the patient, you work for the attorney. So there's not that nurse-patient relationship that we normally have in healthcare.
Okay. And Chris, what about the Canadian perspective?
It's different here. I did report all of the work that I did to my college and association, CARNA, it was at the time, the Alberta Association of Registered Nurses. And there was a little pushback at first. I was kind of breaking trail and they didn't really understand what I was doing. And I also wanted to claim nursing practice hours for all of the work that I was doing, because I was working part-time in a clinical area and probably 20 to 30 hours a week as a legal nurse consultant. And I wanted to be able to claim full-time hours. So I fought a lot of fights there. They weren't difficult fights, but it was just explaining and teaching and having everybody understand, this is what I'm doing. It requires that I be a registered nurse to do it. It requires that I maintain my nursing knowledge and understanding of standards of care. But it isn't, as Tina said, it's not direct patient care. It's working for someone else, but self-employed. So I don't carry any extra insurance. I know through the CNPS in Canada, they do offer an insurance for legal nurse consultants called errors and omissions insurance. But the reason I don't carry it is I've talked to several lawyers about this, and they said, unless you get on the stand and actually perjure yourself, as people who we've seen in the news, and that stuff happens, unless you get up there and you're giving an honest assessment and your expert opinion, no one has ever been sued for that. If it's truthful, it's unbiased, it's based on your knowledge and your expertise, you're not going to get sued for that. You might have a nasty cross-examination, but no one's going to sue you. So I don't carry any extra insurance, but I do report every single hour that I work to my nursing registration body. And they are very gracious at giving me full-time hours, like accrediting as if I were practicing as a bedside nurse. And the other thing that I really tried hard to break trail in was with the Canadian Nurses Association, establishing legal nurse consulting in Canada as an emerging practice. So that has also happened here. So there's an emerging practice group now. And there will eventually, I hope, be a certification program like there is for other types of nursing in Canada, and is a certification program for LNCs in the US. but our numbers are not great enough here that CNA is willing to, you need a minimum of 100, I just found this out recently, you need a minimum of 100 nurses a year to write the exam in order for it to be like financially viable and feasible for them to even hold the exam. And you just don't have those numbers yet, like that 100 new LNCs coming onto the market every year. So it wasn't difficult, but I felt it was important at the time to break trail for everybody coming behind me, that there is an association, the LNCAC, the Legal Nurse Consulting Association of Canada, to get emerging practice with the CNA and to establish with nursing colleges and registration bodies across the country that this is nursing practice and all of the hours count towards your practice hours.
Amazing. I just realized that we all have something in common, even though I'm not a legal nurse consultant. We are all nurse entrepreneurs. And, we have to do what we do to find clients. I just realized that we all have podcasts. We all have our own respective podcasts. We also all offer services to nurses. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, if you can share your podcast, if you could share any services you have for nurses, and then even talking about the role of LinkedIn, because that's how I actually found both of you. So Tina, do you want to share a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. So I founded the Nurse Shark Academy. That is to help nurses who are wanting to get into entrepreneurship and really need a place to start. When I started about 15, 20 years ago as a nurse entrepreneur, there was no one really, when I looked around, for someone to help us in the startup process, that how do I get an LLC, and what does it mean to be taxed, and all those questions that you ask when you start a business. And so that's why I founded the Nurse Shark Academy. And out of that came the Nurse Shark Academy show, where I interview nurse entrepreneurs because I want to hear their story and I want to share their story, because I think it's important for other nurses to hear what nurses can do. And so, so the Nurse Shark Academy, we help you build your dream. And that's what we do, is for nurses and others in the healthcare field.
And do you think that there's a role in LinkedIn for someone who wants to start as an LNC?
Definitely. I actually met so many different legal nurse consultants on LinkedIn that maybe they had a case and someone will put out, hey, I've got this nursing home fall case and I need an expert. And I'm like, oh, I'm here, I can help you. And so it's really great to have a community where you can work together. And so it also has helped me to get to know some other attorneys that are outside of the state of Indiana. So I've had cases across the U.S. So I'm not just working with cases here in Indiana, but I have cases in Connecticut and Michigan and other places. So, yeah.
Great. And how about you, Chris?
The first part, I'll just start with the podcast. My podcast is called Inside Medical Malpractice. And it's specifically about malpractice, but not cases necessarily, but issues around malpractice. It's got doctors, lawyers, patients, and other experts and other LNCs who do work like me to talk about their experience in the malpractice world. It's been running for 3 years. I think I have about 60 episodes. And can I just blow my own horn just for a sec? I just got noticed last night that FeedSpot has named it one of the top 5 malpractice podcasts on the web.
Oh, so, wow. Awesome.
Super excited about that. It was kind of a COVID project for me. Someone dared me, I bet you can't start a podcast. And I was like, well, you don't know me very well. You can be there. And it's gone really well. And I've had a great time doing it. So thanks for giving me the moment to give a little shout out for that. As far as LinkedIn, what was part 2 of the question?
Just if you have any resources for someone who wants to be an LNC.
Oh, right. Yeah, absolutely. Like the course I started is on my website, www.connectmlx.com, medical legal expert. So connectmlx.com. And I have everything from kind of just an intro 10-minute quick snippet course that you can take on legal issues in nursing to a 6-hour course based on a course that I taught across the country to thousands of nurses. And it's also called Legal Issues in Nursing, but it's a much longer in-depth one, and you actually have to be legal nurse consultants and consult on a case and come up with your opinion on the case. And then I have a much longer course, which is got credit for 32 hours. I think it's 32 hours of continuing, maybe it's 28 hours of continuing credit, which is Introduction to Legal Nurse Consulting. And we hire a lot of nurses who take that course. So at the very end of that, you consult on a case and you write a report and you send it to us. And I have someone who is a professor, honestly, and she edits the course. She's a nursing professor, and she edits the course and we'll send it the report, send it back to you with feedback. And then if you're interested in consulting through my company, we'll sign you on, we'll look for work for you. We provide a ton of mentorship. Everybody in my company is healthcare. We're nurses, we're legal nurse consultants. Even my executive assistant is a lab tech and radiographic tech. And we all we offer a lot of mentorship, and we'll talk you through prepping for your phone calls with the lawyers, helping you write your first report, helping you prep for trial if that happens to come to pass. And I also have a book that I wrote a few years ago called Shift Change, and it's all about becoming, my journey of becoming a legal nurse consultant and some of the issues, kind of the 5 repetitive issues that nurses get sued for over and over and over. So.
And Chris, you mentioned that you use LinkedIn a lot to find expert witnesses. Is that right?
I do. I do. We talked about this briefly yesterday. I try to hire nurses who have some basic legal nurse consulting education whenever I can. But every once in a while, we'll get a request from a lawyer that might need a nurse who specifically gives pre-procedure injections in a diagnostic imaging clinic before, a CT scan, something like that. And it has to be in Ontario, and it has to be someone who works in a rural clinic. So when I get really fussy requests, not fussy, that's a bad word, but specific requests like that, LinkedIn is always the first place I go to both find nurses and to just look for other great ones. I think I mentioned too, I'm currently looking for a nurse practitioner in ER from 2009, which was kind of early days in Canada for nurse practitioners. So LinkedIn is the first place I hit. I find doctor experts all the time, also on LinkedIn. And there's a lot of cross-border accidents that happen. So Tina, sometimes I'm looking for U.S. nurses, U.S. doctors, or U.S. attorneys need some Canadian nurses and doctors. So LinkedIn is my go-to to find a nurse expert. I just had to find one in Montana just very recently because someone from Montana was in a car accident in Alberta and then ended up back in the States. And so it's my number one go-to for finding expertise. And it's my number one marketing platform as well. All my courses, podcasts, and announcements I use it for marketing as well.
Yeah, that's great to hear. So my podcast is called the Gritty Nurse Podcast, and we talk about hot topics in healthcare and really just anything that affects nurses or the healthcare system we talk about. And the reason I actually started the RN Resume was because I feel like there are a lot of opportunities that nurses don't know about. I was always told when you graduate nursing school, work in med-surg, stay in the hospital for your whole career, and then retire. And I want nurses to know that that's not the case, and you don't have to do that unless you want to. And the problem that a lot of nurses have is that they just don't know how to market themselves, or it makes them uncomfortable. So helping nurses understand it's not that you necessarily need more skills or more education or more courses. It's about how you market and sell yourself. And I think LinkedIn is the number one thing you can do if you're looking to sort of break out of that box and try something new. So even something as simple as making sure your profile is completely updated so someone like Chris can find you or a recruiter can find you. Or if you're looking to start your own business, you need to have, you have everything set up, maybe even have a LinkedIn business page, which is something that I help nurses with all the time is, building your LinkedIn profile, understanding how to use it. What is a LinkedIn business page? Focusing on presenting yourself well in a resume. So these are all things that I think help all nurses. And I just wanted to thank both of you for coming on today and sharing your expertise from both sides of the border. It's been really, really helpful. If anyone does want to reach out to me, my website is thernresume.com. And then if you two could just quickly share your websites again, that would be great. Tina, what's your website?
Well, if you're looking for a legal nurse consultant or an expert witness, you can reach me on baxterprofessionalservices.com. But if you're a nurse and you're interested in legal nurse consulting, and we do have our legal nurse consulting basics course available to you, you can reach out to us at the nursesharkacademy.biz.
Amazing. And Chris, your website one more time?
Mine is www.connect, so CONNECTMLX, so for like medical legal experts, connectmlx.com. And on there is a link both to the education page where you can sign up for the courses. And there's also an easy button where you, if you're interested in becoming an expert, where you can fill out your area of expertise, upload your resume, and apply, and we are always looking for great experts, so we'll definitely take a look at what you've got. And we also have a place for attorneys or lawyers looking for experts, and it's another thing, like find my expert, and they can upload their case, and we'll get back to them straight away. But we're always looking for great experts, and we always love to hear from nurses who are interested in legal nurse consulting.
Okay, thank you again for the both of you for coming on, and this will be available on my YouTube channel. If anyone missed any of it, it'll be available. You can watch it again. Thanks so much, everyone.